now possibly looking at technology to help us to accelerate this unification. We seem to have infrastructure deficit in terms of engineering being the cornerstone throughout their conversations. Was they understand the technology far beyond our own capacities, and that they are far willing to actually drive this technological narrative forward. One of the lines that stood out for me during that session was digital discrimination remains invisible until it doesn't. And I think that is the new sort of barrier in terms of our protection. So we are required to have or put together a digital defense for ourselves and for our people. With AI comes real risks, and with that, they sort of emanate into areas like ethics, privacy, misinformation, disinformation, and the rest of it. Sometimes dealing with the most unprecedented powers at B. Somehow or the other, we find ourselves that this is not actually a technical glitch. This is bordering the lines of existential human rights. And with that, I think I was reminded around the WSIS Plus 20, which happened this year around the internet, and really solving for it from a UN global perspective as well as a Africa perspective, that connectivity should be a human right as we move into this next phase. Sovereignty's biggest issue that we have is probably not privacy, however, it may be stagnation. And with that, we need to find ourselves in terms of how we actually address some of Africa's weakest implementation problems. They may be because it is misaligned incentives that politicians may have, or governments alike, or maybe it's perhaps diffused ownership. However, at the end of the day, I think the message is very clear from this conference, which is build, build, and build some more. The more that we build out our continental assets, the better off we are. The quicker that we actually do it, the less digital divide we actually are then exposed to. Another area that we strongly need to look at is streamlining regulation. Let us have exploration around policies. One thing Africa is really great at doing is coming around together to formulate policies. However, we also need to look at this opportunity where you have an intersection between, for example, the internet policies, together with data policies, together with IP law, together with copyright law, together with the AI policy, or even blockchain policies. We cannot simply have as many that will govern us into the next phase. And over and beyond that, I think it is building momentum. So as we, finish off this sort of portion, let us remind ourselves that, we are required to finish the unfinished, as it was clearly stated yesterday by His Honorable. We are here, and I think I can speak for a lot of us from the tech sort of community, and we agree that we need to build out our sovereignty roadmap. We recognize that technology requires diplomats, because geopolitics has become a very technologically driven conversation these days. We also know that technology can be used to help relieve some of Africa's debt that may be required. Let us build our single monetary exchange that we've always dreamt of, but now is absolutely tangibly possible for ourselves. New government architectures, establishment of new high command alliances. Let us build the interoperability layer so that we as individual countries can actually come together and function technologically in the manner that we're meant to. So with that, let us build out our intelligence data sets. I was asked to summarize in one sentence what a digitally united Africa could possibly look like. And that is, for me, a very much the inevitable next step that is required in terms of bringing together our collective cognitive intelligence so that we can push ourselves forward, both from an economic, social, technological, as well as political front. However, we still have to do this embedded by governance itself. And with that, I want to say thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. So build, build, and build some more. And I like the summary of what it looks like if we are to build a united Africa. Talking about build, build, and build some more. One thing that I'm very passionate about is that as Africans, we need to be very intentional about building the algorithms that really power AI. Because I have the saying that if we don't shape AI, AI will shape us. I worry that as a continent, we are huge consumers of AI, but not builders of it. And one of the charges I always charge the youth whenever I get the chance to have a conversation with the youth is, what are we doing about getting ourselves familiar, training ourselves on building the algorithms that shape AI? Because if we don't shape AI, AI will shape us. I know that we are running out of time. Let me just get. So I would like to invite the second speaker. Like I said, we have a couple of speakers here this morning who are going to help us to design how technology is going to fuel building a united Africa. And my second speaker is a very special man. We call him the father of internet. I have the mother of AI and the father of internet in this room. You have some really powerful people on this panel this morning. So the third speaker is Dr. Nina Kokweno. He is a pioneering computer scientist and internet innovator, widely recognized as the father of the internet in Africa. He's the first Ghanaian to earn a PhD in computer science and has played a foundational role in building Africa's internet infrastructure. He returned to Ghana to establish West Africa's first internet service provider, helping to lay the groundwork for internet connectivity, national network infrastructure, and early digital financial systems, including the initial Bank of Ghana interbank exchange network. He later founded Ghana.com, one of the first early ICANN accredited domain name registrars, with which today operates as a licensed technology and digital service provider. Dr. Kweno is a retired professor of computer science and remains an active voice in Africa's digital development ecosystem. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Kweno.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and also the Gen Zs. I refuse to grow up. I also want to be a Gen Z, especially for the sake of intergenerational mentorship. And I'm very pleased that Alan reached out to me to participate. Of course, the digital revolution has been going on since the 70s. We've had new challenges and opportunities, but appear that Africa has limited resources to address them all well, with consequences. So we'll touch on some of the issues here. Of course, the revolution is much more than AI, or for that matter, blockchain, IoT. It's much, much larger. A bit of looking back. Computing was introduced in Africa around the 70s with mid-range and early mini computers for universities, banking, payroll, etc., meaning the enterprise time. The microcomputers and personal computer boom in the 80s improved access to computing. University adopted computer departments and curriculum on computing, etc. in the 80s. But for Ghana, this was in 1974 at KNUST by Professor F.K.A. Alote, for which I was recruited to become the first computer science PhD. Now, early networking was interconnecting computers, mostly in local area networks. So you see DECnet, IBM SNA, IPX, and so on, and long-distance networking through public switch telephone network. Some went X25, and some went DSL, ISDN, and so forth. Then the internet came. So we went from email, news forums, internet protocol connectivity was established beginning in the 90s. So 30 years later, the question is, where do we stand? We celebrate this year the 30th anniversary of full internet protocol connectivity, internet access in Africa. We have less than 50% internet penetration in Africa, actually around 40%. We are struggling with universal connectivity, while now talking meaningful connectivity. Mobile internet access and infrastructure is owned by multinational and foreign companies. We have weak adoption of new internet technologies like the new numbering system called IPv6, or the more secure name service called DNSSEC, or the more secure routing, which we call routing PKI, resource PKI. Internet resilience, which is measured by Internet Society and Co. We rank 41% out of 100, while Oceania is 51, Americas 53, Asia 55, Europe 69, and so forth. We have weak locally cached content, about 36%. We have weak usage of domain names. Africa is at 4.4 domain names per 1,000, where the global is 45 per 1,000. So we ask questions like, what happened to the uptake of .Africa, which is a continental name? Weak and fragile internet ecosystem. Our numbers registry, Afrinic, had some challenges with people trying to control. And there was constant fight on the way forward around cybersecurity. We are being hacked all the time, and we have to, defend ourselves constantly. Africa currently faces significant computing power deficit, hosting data centers less than 1% of the world's data centers, and high-performance computers are difficult. 43% of the continent's population lacks electricity, access to electricity, which we need for this new phase of uniting Africa. On the positive side, we have a regional internet registry. We have exchange points where we meet to exchange traffic, peering points everywhere. Ghana has 2, Nigeria has 5, South Africa has 11, Kenya has 6. Regional internet exchange points are predominantly in Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, and Egypt. The names for countries we call CCTLD registries and registrars, we have them. AccraAccredited registrars who can register in global name, like .com and so on, we have them. We have data centers. Ghana has 7, Nigeria has 18, South Africa has 29, Kenya has 14. Meaning it's not all bad. Africa is surrounded by sea cables because they want to capture our traffic. Do we want to own some of them or have participation in them? There are more DNS, domain name root servers, the origin of the name structure. It starts with the root, then it goes to the coms and nets and so on, the country ones, and then it spreads down. There are more than 150 of them. We have an AF-STAR coordination for the technical internet governance institutions, which is the NOGs, the operator groups, the information centers for the numbers, the TLDs, the research education networks, the registrars, the emergency response teams called CERTs, and we have .Africa. We have lots of services and solutions provided, some local, regional, and others global. There are many initiatives and activities about improving the African digital landscape. Now, what targets? The AUC Digital Transformation Strategy for Africa 2020 to 2030 set some targets. It said that by 2030, all our people should be digitally empowered and able to access safely and securely to at least 6 megabits per second all the time, wherever they live in the continent at an affordable price of no more than 1 cent USD per mega, through smart devices manufactured in the continent at a price of no more than 100 USD, to benefit from all basic e-services and content of which at least 30% is developed and hosted in Africa. We are about midway, and we wonder how we are doing. Internet Quality Index from Cloudflare 2025 shares the following. Estimated download speed worldwide is 21.2 megabits per second. Africa is at 8.3. Estimated round-trip time, a measure of latency under average utilization, the world is at 54 milliseconds, and Africa is at 101 milliseconds. Our work is cut out for us. That's the message I want to steer. Estimated domain name lookup time under average utilization, the world is at 67 milliseconds, meaning when you are looking for a name in .gh and so on, okay, worldwide, but we are at 129 milliseconds. Now, the 6 megabits per second seems handy. We're doing better, right? But the access bandwidth is a moving target and perhaps not ambitious enough because the world is moving faster than we are able to, okay? And latency is another main issue to deal with, meaning how long it takes is also an issue. Content hosted in-country or cache, another area we can look at. 36% of the top 1,000 websites can be accessed through an in-country server or cache. With the regional exchange points, some content are also accessible on the continent. Top 10 most popular internet services worldwide are covered search, social networks, chat and messaging, and e-commerce and cloud. Our young population are spending around 7 hours a day on social networks and chat messaging. That's a lot. So we should be interested in what they are spending that time doing and how we can steer it to become more productive. Global players have a say in the local fabrication and access of content. No African organization appeared in the top 10 most popular e-commerce or financial services. African-owned e-commerce and financial services is lacking, and this must be a concern for African Continental Free Trade Area. Even Pan-African media enterprises have lost African ownership, and startups look for investment overseas, effectively mortgaging future African ownership. We have work to do. Now on artificial intelligence. The internet which enables AI has evolved from human communication to Internet of Things, that's machines, to AI agents interacting autonomously. This transition represents a new phase of digital era, the Internet of Intelligence. There are opportunities for Africa. The key is to focus in AI applications on African problems as referenced in the AU Continental AI Strategy 2024. We might develop cultural intelligence by building narrow specialized models rooted in African data and context, such as herbal medicine, history, music, and languages all offer opportunities. It is essential to secure and manage African data responsibly, however, in the AI era. Support for local languages, language processing will make AI accessible to all and protect ownership. We should encourage open source AI and open parameters for models where practical, and to promote inclusiveness and increase participation while avoiding capture. There are lots of people who are interested in capturing our markets. There are risks and challenges. We note that the current AI excitement serves to create markets for the current dominant international providers. Our community of largely advocates and few actual developers makes us particularly vulnerable to market capture. We should therefore avoid becoming mere users, AI users, to prevent future capital flight. It used to be that email services overseas were free. These days they charge. They charge for the volume of data you are keeping. It was free in the beginning, now it's capital going out. To work for a true African AI, an ability to use tools is not sufficient. Africa must learn to build and evolve its own tools. We note in the Continental AI Strategy section 143 enablers, the internet is core infrastructure in which AI thrives, and social media is driving user experience with AI solutions. But we wonder how to steer the youth more towards the creation of the tools instead of users dependent on the AI tools of others. The AI structural constraints noted in the Continental AI Strategy section 144, inhibitors, imposes a new AI digital divide. In particular, high power consumption. We have scarce power. Costly high-performance computing. I used to build CPUs in the 90s. And shortage of specialized skills are a threat. In conclusion, our dilemma, should we focus on bringing on board the left out, or take on the challenges on closing the gaps for advanced services? The digital revolution is ongoing despite the challenges. Africa is diverse with good success stories, emerging scenarios, but also we have to reflect on the actions. Emerging local solutions and services face global competition. New local services following the path of external hosting to join existing. It becomes add over there instead of deploying new here. This is pragmatic, but denies local infrastructure development and technical capacity. So with that, I say thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Quino. I think one thing that resonated with me from your speech was that most of Africa digital infrastructure is owned by multinationals, and only 2% or less of the data that we generate on the continent is stored in our data centers here. So that brings up the question of data sovereignty. And as you know, data has become the new gold. And I keep saying that the person who controls the data is the person who will control the world. So that is food for thought. We need to think about what is happening to our data, where it's being stored, how it's being used, and make sure that if we're going to create a United States of Africa, then we have to prioritize the ownership of our data. Thank you very much, Doctor. Our third speaker is a very lovely, lovely lady that when I started reading about her, I was very impressed with what she has been doing. So, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce you to Miss Gwendolyn Anson Smith. She is the founder and CEO of Pivot 57, a global strategy and intelligence firm providing advanced data, insight, and analysis of Africa markets. She previously held senior leadership roles at Invesco, a global asset management firm, where she led global strategic engagement, expanded the firm's investment presence across Africa, and shaped its institutional investment strategy. She's also authored Invesco's Investing in Africa report, establishing the firm's perspective on Africa markets. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Gwendolyn Ansah-Smith.
I'm short. Wonderful. Good morning, everyone. So nice to see all of these wonderful faces this morning. It's my absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you, Angela, for that lovely introduction. I'm Gwendolyn Ansah-Smith, formally, and I am the CEO and founder of Pivot 57, a global intelligence platform that is all about transforming data into key insights that helps decision makers make the most critical decisions about directions that they want to take their businesses. So the talk that I'm going to give today is about Africa and the digital revolution, of course. And I'm focusing on how information quality and digital platforms lead to economic outcomes. And it's very much tied into the theme of this conference, and I think quite timely, if you ask me. So with that, let's get into it. So you'll see behind me, I'm going to dial through some slides, so just take a minute to read as you're able, and let's follow along. So Africa is entering a defining moment. The region's trajectory is certainly accelerating. Internally, the continent is being shaped by very powerful sources and are changing how people live, work, transact, and build. That's internally. Externally, there's a ton of interest in what the opportunities on the continent provides. And there's a lot of global attention on the geopolitical position that Africa is in. So there is quite a bit of the continent is sort of entering into this defining moment. Enter into a defining moment that is actually quite pivotal for us. And the decisions that we make now will have outsized decisions, not just now, but also in the long term. So this page that you're looking at is actually quite interesting. So Africa, you'll see, just given the amount of opportunities that flow into the continent, at the beginning of everything, we have roughly $425 billion of opportunities that are being presented to us on an annual basis. And when you go through the opportunities that we have, you'll see that there's quite a bit of capital loss that is happening through the investment cycle. And much of that is due to inconsistent data. There's been a lot of talk about the importance of data, but where Africa is concerned, there's quite a bit of missing data, latent data, gaps in our data, just a lot of challenges when institutional investors are trying to evaluate an opportunity and whether they should pursue it or not. So that has created quite a challenge. So if you see that the data, it's hard to, I think it's a bit hard to read, but that $125 billion loss is just from transparency, not having transparent data from the continent. The other thing is that investors have a very, they have some difficulty in comparing countries and the information that the standardization of data from one country to the other. So there are a host of issues when any asset management firm or individual investors trying to make a decision about whether to invest in Africa or not. The data is there, but it's structured in a way that it is just a lot of times not useful. So as a result, we lose hundreds of billions of dollars by the end of the year. In this case, it's 190 billion. So what this chart really represents is when it's all said and done, that 425 billion turns into 235. And then from that 235, we actually, I think if any of you here are familiar with how much capital flows onto the continent, it's roughly about $100 billion a year. But the one key point that I want to make here is Africa is not constrained by opportunity. We are constrained by the availability of information. So this third page is really signaling that decision makers, again, are not struggling to find data. They're just struggling to interpret it. And that's really all that we're saying here. And timing, synthesizing data is a huge challenge, as is timely data, and also having this single set lens. So data by itself is actually quite meaningless when you think about it. It's really what you're able to do with the data, how you can interpret the data, how you can then turn the data into insights. And when, seeing a bunch of numbers on a page really doesn't take you anywhere unless you know what's behind it. So this kind of market challenge led us to the development of Pivot 57. Pivot 57, as I mentioned earlier, is a global intelligence platform. It is an integrated platform, and it's structured in a way that no other intelligence platform has been designed to this point. Pivot 57 takes raw data, and as you can see, sorry about that, this is a page I meant to be on. It takes raw and core data, data about the market's macro, trade, investment, and it converts it into intel, which is on the right side of the page. So you can see here that the core data ingested is macro, capital markets, sector performance, country data. And what we do is we turn those into insights, and those become decision-making outputs. And it helps with investment readiness, risk orientation, and early indicators of change. So what we are effectively doing is taking data that actually lives in a variety of places, numerous places, but you must sort of understand the level of frustration that an investor goes through when they're just looking for the most basic data about Ghana, about Sierra Leone, about Rwanda, about Nigeria, about South Africa, whatever, name your country. And the data is there in abundance, but the clarity is not there. So what we do is we bring the clarity and we bring the decision-making so that an investor or any decision maker can move through the process with as quickly as possible. So our focus is not to share isolated metrics, but to really help you to make decisions and tell a story with the data. So real quickly, this is the infrastructure, the intelligence behind the data. It's quite simple. I'll keep it very light. As I said, data is the foundation of what we're building. It's really not much simpler than that. We ingest the data, we clean the data, we normalize the data and validate the data, and then it goes through the cycle where we then turn that data into intelligence. So the intelligence process is really where we are pulling together trends and identifying anomalies. And then from there, we go into decision-making layer, and that's really where we serve it up to the user. So in the decision-making layer is where we develop the risk scores, the indices, the frameworks, so that when you log on to the platform, you can easily make your assessments based on what you're seeing. Our distinct advantages, I think I mentioned it a bit before, but I'll just summarize it. We are data-driven, of course, but we are also We are also AI-powered, which is very important. And then beyond that, we're on the cloud, so that allows for a lot of flexibility as we engage with literally hundreds of thousands of data that we're ingesting. So just being on the cloud really helps us in doing that. Our strength is not so much technical capability. Our strength is really all about system design. We're designing this in a way that has never been done before. So who do we serve? We serve a variety of people. We really serve everyone and anyone who needs data on Africa. But our main groups of users are institutional investors, governments, and other DFIs, multilateral partners. But, you know, this is on the page, but I do hesitate to even kind of identify those users, because it can be students, it can be anyone who's looking to gain clarity on African markets and also have the ability to make comparisons as and when needed. Across these users is really a common thread, and that is just having a need for insights and decision making. And then finally, what I'd like to say here is our long-term competitiveness as a continent will be defined by our ability to move from isolated actions to coordinated decisions. It has really been a theme of the summit yesterday as well as today. And I think having data as the foundation of that is really core to making sure that we do things in an exceptional way. We have the capability, we just have to be much more aligned and structured in how we do that. And then finally, I'll say, as we grow and become more complex, the decision for clarity on so many levels matters now more than ever. So if you're interested in what we're building, I invite you to log onto the site, join us. We're not launching until Q1 2026, but we would love to have you to the extent that you'd like to see how the platform works. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gwen. So we're building a story here, and I like the way this, the presentations have gone. We started with talking about AI, and we talked about the importance of us building and building and building, and I talked about making sure that we are not just consumers of AI, but we are builders of the algorithms. And then without data, we are not able to build the algorithms. That moved to Mr. Quino's speech about data centers. He highlighted that only less than 2% of data that is created in Africa is stored in Africa, which led to the conversation about data sovereignty. and the importance of data. And then we've had Ms. Gwen talk about the importance of data, especially from the investment angle. If you're looking to invest, you usually want to know about the data that is available, and most of the time the data is unstructured. So at this point, we are going to open up to some questions from the audience, and then I will take a seat and then deep dive into some of the presentations that we have heard this morning. So do we have any questions from, I see one hand here, the second hand there. Can we please have the mic? Okay, thank you. So I see one hand there and another one here and a third one here. So we take these three questions and then I'll take a seat and deep dive into the presentation. Please go ahead. Your name, where you're coming from, and your question, please.
Okay, I'm Theophilus Ofe from Accra Technical University.
Sorry, we can hardly hear you.
Theophilus Ofe Dakon from Accra Technical University.
Thank you.
So based on the three speakers, I didn't hear about data you used to build our healthcare system in Africa. Because in some countries and some villages in Ghana, you realize that some of the rural communities do not have access to healthcare. Yes, that's my question. Thank you.
So let me understand your question. Your question is, how do we gather the data to build healthcare tools in the remote areas? Thank you. Second question, please.
Thank you very much. This is a good opportunity to actually come to terms with some of the issues that are afflicting our continent and what we can do about it. I'm Seth Vojagbe. I'm from GAFIX, Ghana Association of Former International Civil Servants. I have a number of questions that I want to ask, but I'll just limit myself to a few, to each of them. To the ambassador, I just want to ask specifically, what is the EU and the rest of Africa doing to scale up the initiatives of Strive and the rest in enhancing AI in Africa? There are two Ghanaians that are doing marvelous work in that space. One has come up with a software and the systems to translate local languages. He's from Northern Ghana. He's a doctor, in the US somewhere. And another Ghanaian in the UK has invented a physical device, an earbud, which also translates languages. What are we doing to meld those two and to, encourage them? To Dr. Queno, the doyen, if I may add, we interacted in the late 70s and the 80s. The point is lost, and which is not known, that the very basis of computing has African origins. The Ifa system of divination, which is linked to the Aichi, was utilized by Leipzig in developing the language for computing. So inherently, it's a technology that shouldn't be alien to us, and that it should be, riding on, which means that we can Africanize it if we put our mind to it. To Dr. Queno specifically, I just want to ask, to what extent can we encourage the African Wealth Fund, which is also being discussed in this meeting? How can we urge them to direct investment into supporting the development and manufacturing of IT, infrastructure, devices, systems, etc. Because one thing I see, and this is where, again, like the climate issue, we are between the rock and the hard place. To develop these data centers and the rest requires massive amounts of water, power, and the rest. And those are the very things that we need for our basic development. So with those constraining us, to what extent can we advance the manufacturing of these devices in Africa? To Gwendolyn, very good presentation. I think we need to move beyond data to intelligence, and that's what your outfit seeks to do. You started by pointing out the transition points that are ongoing now on the continent, which means that we should be looking at integrative data and move away from the silos approach. And that's what you highlighted in your last slide. To what extent do you think that we need policy direction and support to embark on that? And lastly, to you again, Gwen, when you take the data, one of the things that I find is that investors are very unwilling to invest in data acquisition itself. They are very reticent. And yet our African statistical systems, I was talking to the GSS, Ghana Statistical Service, last year and asked them, why don't we monetize more the data that you put out there so that you can generate revenues? And then there are other, then there are
sorry.
arguments.
If you can kindly round up for us.
Yes. I'm just, there are issues about, public funding. So the question that I'm asking, specifically is, to what extent do you invest in the generation of the data that you use? I'm sorry to take so much time, but thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We're running out of time, so we'll take our last question, and then we'll move on to the panelists for them to answer the questions. Please round it up, make it really.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Orasa Kodie, and I was born in Ghana, but I was proudly made in the USA. And I came to Ghana just for this summit. And for the records, I just ran for the mayorship in Worcester, Massachusetts. So my question goes to any of the panelists. If you have the power to implement one bold decision today to accelerate Africa's AI economy, what would it be? And lastly, what should success look like in 5 years if Africa gets AI right? Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So we'll start with Ambassador. You have a couple of questions for you, and then we'll move to Dr. Queno.
Yeah, thank you so very much for those questions. So to answer yours first, in terms of Strive and what they're doing. So they're building out AI factories, which literally means, they are looking at the computational stack within the data centers and helping that acceleration process within the continent. The AU has already, engaged from ESTI perspective. We have 2 different commissioners. One is particularly looking at energy and infrastructure. Her name is Commissioner Larato, and together Strive in themselves has been engaging on that front quite a bit. On the other 2 examples that you gave of the Ghanaians doing work, I think I would say, go ahead and engage with the digital minister as an example, because I know there's already existing relationships between some of the big techs like Google and Ghana, right? And there's a lot there that can then be leveraged for their solutions as an interim expansion or scalability. In terms of the young gentleman's question, I think it's a very interesting one. If we had to get AI right on the continent, it's benchmarked economically against 3 things. So we've got to move away from the cost of capital to the cost of intelligence, the cost of data, and the cost of energy. That becomes our new key fundamental factors that will determine whether we survive or we don't.
Thank you, Ambassador. We have 3 minutes, so we'll move quickly to Dr. Quainer.
Yeah, okay. It is indeed true that there are some computational foundations Africa has that we could have leveraged or may still leverage. It will surprise many of you to know that the Oware board that we take for granted is actually a calculator. Okay? And there's a whole book that I wrote far back on how to use that board for additions, subtractions, multiplications, and divisions. The problem with many of Africa is we don't listen. We think the world started when we arrived. Okay? But there's plenty that has gone on before us, and so your question is indeed very important. We seem to have given up on many areas. We have abandoned manufacturing, and that makes your point very important. Partly because the scale is too minute, and it poses some investment challenges for those who want to. But I, for instance, still manufacture. I build enclosures in my premise, and the enclosures I put in there, the usual things you can buy, that will, for example, allow you to distribute mobile money instead of going to the corner and at risk for your daughter or something. In a dormitory, the person can go in there and put money, and he recognizes our CD, put the CD in, and he will give you the mobile money, and vice versa. But I build the enclosures here. I actually have laser cutters and welders and 3D printers that do that. Now, I'm trying to challenge the whole process by doing it small scale myself, just to make a point, okay? But what we have to do is to scale it. So I'm actually supporting you, saying that you can do some, but there's a real challenge in the scale that you want. So but you have the foundations, okay? The second
Dr.
question.
Quainer, you have 2 seconds more.
Oh, well, it's fine. For AI economy, I tell you that you've already missed, huh? You've already missed. But what we are doing is playing catch up. The big machines, the big GPUs, high performance machines are almost inaccessible. But one thing you can do is mindset change. If you change the mindset, we can do some catch up. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Gwen. Unfortunately, our next speaker needs to jump on a flight, so we really have to speed up. Sorry to pressure you.
Hello. Okay, thank you. I do want to you had quite a preamble there, and you had numerous questions, but I'll address one, which was on how governments and policy can impact this type of work and the work of many others that are focused on data. A lot of the information that we ingest into our platform actually comes from the government. And it's incredibly important for the government of all of the countries in Africa to understand that they have a real role to play here in making sure that information is timely, information is accurate, and information is trusted. Because without that, we're actually putting ourselves in a less secure situation. I'm sure some of you in the room have heard of garbage in, garbage out. So if we are not able to pull in information that we can trust, as a core data foundation and turn that into the insights that's needed, then, at the end of the day, what are we doing? So from a government and a policy perspective, I think it's really important for African countries, African leadership to come together and have a real understanding of how of an important role data plays, how data can be transmitted to the world, and how data can be such an effective tool in increasing investments on the continent. So I think that's an area of huge investment that should be made throughout the continent, and I hope it's something that we start to take very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, this is all we have time for this morning. I hope you've enjoyed this session. We're going to be around, so if you have any further questions, please feel free to engage the panelists and myself. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the summit.
Can I ask us to give a bigger round of applause to this panel, please? Thank you so much, our panel chair, Angela Chomate-Jimo, and to our speakers, Ambassador Dr. Lavina, Gwendolyn Ansah, and Dr. Ni Naku Kweno. Thank you so much. We're going to delve straight into our next panel, and this will be a very interesting one. We're going to be talking about whether or not democratic governance is an impediment or catalyst for growth, prosperity, and unity of Africa. The chair of this session is another lady who we deeply love and admire for all her work that she does in advocacy for gender equality, among others. She is currently the country director of Amnesty International Ghana. She is very passionate about defending human rights and an expert in international development. She holds a Master of Laws degree from the University of East London, a master's degree in international relations and political science, and a master's degree in development studies. She brings a wealth of knowledge and practical experience to her work in advancing gender equality, social justice, and human rights. She has over a decade of experience in working in the development sector in the Netherlands, in France, and parts of West Africa. She is the co-founder of Ladies in Development Africa, a network of women learning and sharing opportunities in the development sector. She also enjoys mentoring young women who aspire to work in the development sector. So for the young ladies here who are looking to work in the development sector, she's a lady or the lady that you should connect with today at lunchtime. Ladies and gentlemen, a very big round of applause as we welcome our panel chair, Genevieve Partington. And as she comes, I know it's a bit of a struggle getting all our questions in, so you may send your questions to info@censadev.org. Let me spell it, CENSADEV.org, and we'll answer the questions as they come. Genevieve?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Na. Good morning, everyone. Hey, wow. Good morning, everyone. Great. I want to first say thank you so much to Honorable Alan Tremanting for giving me this opportunity to chair this session. So our session today is very interesting. It's is democratic governance an impediment or a catalyst for Africa's growth, prosperity, and unity? Of course, it's not an abstract debate. Across the continent, we know that many governments have come into power through democratic means. But there's also been some form of manipulation with these same systems of democracy, with the result often being democratic form without democratic substance. At the same time, Africa faces urgent development challenges: youth unemployment, inequality, rising public debt, and declining trust in political institutions. You will see that across sub-Saharan Africa, where we have Mali, Burkina, and Niger going through coup d'etats due to political unrest and insecurity in the country. This has led, of course, to some citizens to question whether democracy is delivering tangible benefits or whether alternative models promise faster results. To explore this tension, we are joined by two distinguished speakers, maybe sometimes with contrasting perspectives. We have, first of all, I'll introduce Mr. Franklin Cudjoe. He is the founding president and CEO of Imani Center for Policy and Education, a think tank of global repute dedicated to the promotion of the institutions of a free society across Africa. Imani has been consistently ranked among the top 5 most influential think tanks in sub-Saharan Africa and among the top 100 worldwide. In 2010, Franklin was consulted by the UK's Prime Minister's Office on how to make effective use of British aid in Africa. Franklin has hosted and shared panels with former Malaysian Deputy Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, Swiss President Doris Luther, German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier, and debated former Tanzanian President Benjamin Mkapa when he was president in 2005. In 2010, Franklin was named a young global leader by the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. He was the only named think tank leader in top 50 Africans list of the respected Africa Report magazine in 2012. Franklin has put on hold his part-time doctoral studies at Buckingham University, UK. He's an alumnus of Harvard Kennedy School Executive Education, the Atlas Economic Research Foundation's think tank MBA program, and the Montreal Economic Institute's think tank training program. He has a Bachelor of Science in Land Economy from KNUST. Please, let's welcome Mr. Franklin Cudjoe. So just a few things to add on why this conversation matters. Africa has one of the youngest populations globally, yet we face a slow per capita income growth. Public support for democracy remains high, but trust in democratic institutions is declining, as you can see with so many protests happening across Africa currently. And some governments win elections, but govern undemocratically, raising questions about whether democracy is delivering development and unity. I would like to introduce the second speaker, who I happen to work with a lot, and his daughter happens to be a very good friend of mine, Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr. He's a well-known Ghanaian journalist, political commentator, and Pan-African activist. He is the managing editor of The Insight, a newspaper noted for its critical and progressive analysis of national and international issues. Born into a politically conscious family, he's the son of veteran journalist and activist Kwesi Pratt Sr., whose influence shaped his strong interest in politics, media, and social justice. Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr. is widely recognized for his outspoken views on governance, corruption, and foreign influence in Africa. He frequently appears on television and radio programs, offering sharp and independent political analysis. He's also associated with Pan-African Television, a platform that promotes African unity, historical awareness, and self-reliance. Known for his left-leaning and Pan-African ideology, Pratt Jr. advocates for African sovereignty, accountable leadership, and economic independence. His bold perspectives have made him an influential and sometimes controversial voice in Ghana's political and media space. So welcome to my speakers, and we'll have input. You can sit or stand, whichever one you would prefer. So Franklin, you can go ahead. Thank you.
So, good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for inviting us to this program. I mean, thank you for inviting me to this program. Honorable Alan Chairman Tin has been a good father and a good friend. And I think this is a wonderful program, really. I don't know whether this is the maiden one. I hope it is the maiden one. Okay, right. So we have interesting forums these days in Ghana. I know Gabi also has a South Africa, what did they call it again? Africa Progress, something. Anyway, so these are important platforms to have conversations like this. Let me just say that the question is quite straightforward, really. I mean, does democratic governance, is it an impediment or an enabler, if you like, for development on the continent? I mean, I think it's a straightforward answer, really. I mean, if I look at the definitions of good governance, if we look at the institutions of good governance, we are talking about the rights of people to express themselves, the rights of people to be respectful of laws and rules, if you like. And indeed, the fact that you need to have democratic, should I call them democratic institutions like the free press, the electoral commission, and basically all the institutions that you think can enhance development in a country. Now, therefore, if you ask the question whether these institutions are enablers or, if you like, probably not enablers of growth, I think you only need to look at the data. I mean, I like to speak with data, and I consider some of the data points that I probably will share. If I look at so there's the Mo Ibrahim Index, for instance. There's also the number of governance, should I call them indices, right? We have the Mo Ibrahim Index. We have the Government Effectiveness Index of the World Bank. And you do have you even have what I call the relatable or related indices like the CEI, Competitive Enterprise Index, that's of the World Economic Forum, and the Economic Freedom of the World Report. So all these indices, if you take a critical look at them, measure a set of institutions against the reality on the ground. I mean, essentially, how are governments either scoring on these indices? It could be property rights, it could be the institutions of governance, as in the Electoral Commission, how the Electoral Commission is independent, how the courts are independent, basically how people's freedoms and liberties are respected. And all the time, if you look at the data, I mean, I've been looking at data for the past 15 years, almost all the countries that do well are countries either in the north, and then you have countries somewhere, middle-level income countries, and then most of the countries that do not do well are actually in Africa. And it's a bit worrying. If you look at if you take the Economics Magazine's Intelligence Unit Index on Democracy as well, you realize that, in fact, the 2024 report shows that it is one African country that actually is described as a full democracy, and that's Mauritius. The others, Ghana and a few other countries, are even described as flawed democracies, which is quite telling, right? I mean, you think that in Ghana, we have a very vibrant democracy, people speak their mind and what have you, but certain indices like the Economic Intelligence Unit describes Ghana as a flawed democracy, alongside the countries like Botswana, South Africa, and a few others that you have thought were doing well on the continent. They are described as flawed democracies. But then most African countries are actually described as either authoritarian or just plain illiberal democracies, So, and I asked myself, why do these indices matter? They matter because they are indicative of whether a country is doing well or not. And again, if you look at if you compare these indices against what actually happens in the countries, in those countries, you do realize that they actually do tell a story. Of all the countries that, I mean, if you take Mauritius, for instance, Mauritius is actually the country that has the highest per capita income, I think, on the continent, right? It's about 12,500 US dollars per capita in Mauritius right now. Ghana and a few other countries. Well, if you look at South Africa is likely to be about $6,800 per capita in the next, by the end of this year. Botswana is also somewhere around that area. But apart from South Africa, Botswana, what's it called, Mauritius, and a few, and two other countries, actually the few of the northern countries, I think Morocco, and then even Egypt, almost all the countries in Africa are actually not doing well at all. So in this case, we are comparing the GDP per capita of a country as against the institutions of freedom or the institutions of good governance. So I think to answer the question straightforward, I would say that, look, you've got to answer the question of the data that is available. And as I say, if I look at the data carefully, it looks to me that countries that are doing well are imbibing the institutions of liberty, the institutions of a free society, i.e. property rights, good elections, transparent and good governance, and indeed all the things that you expect to see in a very liberal democracy. And I think for me, those institutions are enablers of growth. So someone will say, well, then what next? And because I'm Ghanaian and obviously I'm West African, I worry a lot because if you look at the situation in West Africa, you see Ghana, even though as described by the EU's the Economist Intelligence Unit as a flawed democracy. Clearly speaking, Ghana is like an oasis in a desert. If you look at the way the other countries have actually been behaving, I mean, just imagine what happened recently in Benin. Initially, when I heard the Benin issue, I wasn't entirely surprised because I realized that the Prime Minister also had actually been planning to extend tenure. And these are some of the reasons why other countries are actually following that path as well. Cote d'Ivoire, that was not expected to actually go the path Ouattara has gone. Actually, we know Ouattara is almost getting into his fourth term, right? He's probably go for a fourth term. And you look again at other countries in the sub-region, it's as if all these countries are exiting the one responsible institution we call ECOWAS. And for good reasons, they say ECOWAS is like a toothless bulldog. I don't think ECOWAS actually respects their views. And if you actually juxtapose the reasons given by these countries that have left ECOWAS as against certain polls that have actually been held on the continent, you tend to think that people really are thinking that it is better to believe in development than democracy. I say this because I've seen a number of polls that run by the Africa Report magazine, and even the CDD's own Afrobarometer rounds of surveys. If you take a critical look at most of the results, you tend to see that most Africans, increasingly young Africans, are actually preferring, they really do not care what type of democracy or what type of governance they have. They just want development. They just want the water running. They just want the roads done. They just want the schools, good water systems, which are all the basics of life. And that is a wake-up call. I think that we'll keep on seeing the scenes we saw in Madagascar, where Gen Zs essentially were rallying, chasing the leaders out of power. And what it means that democracies or so-called that do not reform immediately do have issues. If you take a look at what President Mohamed's second coming has been heralded by most of these West African countries as a blessing, right? You recall that when he became president, his first task was to travel to a few of these countries to see whether the whole idea of ECOWAS can be brought back again, so that those countries that have left would be welcomed again. But it's not going to be easy. You do realize, though, that Ghana seems to occupy this very enviable position, as I describe as an oasis in the desert. And I think with that, Ghana should be, under President Mahama, should take advantage of what we know him to do best, a good negotiator, and then find ways of bringing back those countries into the fold. Even if they're not coming back, they need to be seen or be encouraged to respect the basics of life. I mean, basics of good governance. The question really, though, is, are they interested in being part of a club that just shouts, keep constitutional order in place, but in actual fact, become just toothless when it comes to countries that are actually gone off the rails when it comes to democratic development. West Africa is, I don't know how to, there's an adjective I'd like to use, but for the purpose of this conversation, I'll keep it to myself for now. I think we need to ensure that the leading lights within Africa, especially in West Africa, are at the helm of, are the commanding heights of all these conversations about how to bring back what we once regarded as the reasons why people would wish to live in a civilized country, i.e. a transparent and accountable governance, respect for people's rights, their properties, their persons, and indeed all the things that you want to see in a civilized country. So once again, I'd like to say that for me, my direct answer to the question is that, look, you only need to look at the indices, economic indices, the governance indices that we know, the Mo Ibrahim Index, the Governance Effectiveness Index of the World Bank, the identical economic indices like the Economic Freedom of the World, then the Competitive Enterprise Index of the World Economic Forum. If you look at all these indices, they tell a story. Countries that are open, countries that respect basic rights, freedoms, well organized. Indeed, there's a correlation to they being doing quite well. So with that, I probably will just stop here, and then maybe during the question and answers we can talk more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Franklin. So I got a few points where, you spoke about good governance, having free press, elections, etc. But we do see a trend in some of the sister countries where media restrictions are in place, or where governments started with democracy, with elections, and then, of course, those in power manipulated the system by changing terms to benefit themselves, to stay longer in power. You've got examples like Uganda, where you have Museveni, came into power through elections, but of course later manipulated the system so that he can stay in power. You also have our famous Robert Mugabe, who did a lot of electoral manipulation, Kagame, Tanzania, all these things are happening across the globe, and that is where I'll bring Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr. in, because it would be good to see how, democracy is important, but we have to see how, especially our continent, there's a lot of political and electoral manipulation and public unrest due to that. And we can look at I also want to look at the opposing side, where we have Niger and Burkina, where the presidents were elected properly, and then due to insecurity in the countries, there were coup d'etats. So it'll be interesting to hear Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr.'s views on that. So kindly welcome him. Thank you.
Well, dear friends and citizens, first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Alan Martin and the organizers of this summit for giving all of us an opportunity to think about our continent, to find out if there are ways of moving this continent forward to prosperity, to find out if it is possible to break the shackles which have kept us down for hundreds of years. We're supposed to be discussing whether or not democracy is necessary for taking us forward. But I think the first task is really to find out what democracy is. Because we could all agree that democracy is necessary for taking us forward, and we could be talking about very different things if we don't have a common understanding of what democracy is. Now, I think it's important to understand that there are different definitions of democracy. There are some historians who insist that the origins of democracy can be found in ancient Greece. This was a slave-owning society. They kept slaves. The slaves had no rights. They even didn't have the right to life. The slave could be killed by the slave owner, and the slave owner owed no obligation to explain why he killed another human being. But then they were seen as democratic. And indeed, those in the West believed that that was the foundation of democracy. Strange, but that's a fact. If you come to Marxist theory, Marxism recognizes that there are different types of democracy. Marxism, for example, recognizes that there is bourgeois democracy, in which freedom in its essence and so on becomes the valued property of the property-owning classes and so on, and they use it to oppress the rest of society, to amass wealth, to dominate institutions of governance and so on. And then Marxism also recognizes the existence of proletariat democracy, in which the working people take power and exploit that power, to advance their own interest and so on. And there are all kinds of democracies. Indeed, there are those who advocate that we can go back to our African traditions and build democracy from there. And I just wonder how any system based on inheritance, any system that does not recognize the equality of citizens can become democratic. But these are all questions that we can address. The point I want to make is that the unity of the African people and African states is an imperative. We either unite or we perish in this complex world. And there is reason for taking this position. Now, let's look back. Today, there are 1.4 million Africans in this world. 1.4 billion Africans. 1.4 billion Africans in this world. But we are not represented in all the institutions, the global institutions. We have no voice. You go to the United Nations and we are confined or restricted to votes in the General Assembly. We have no say in the Security Council. We don't matter in the Security Council. We don't matter in the World Bank and its institutions, the IMF and so on. We have no voice on the World Trade Organization. These institutions are what they are because essentially from 1945 when they were being constructed, we were not at the table. 1945 when they were being constructed, we were still colonies of the empires, the French Empire, the British Empire and so on. So when they met to construct these structures, we were not there and our interest was not taken into consideration. We need to embark upon a journey of resetting the world and its institutions. We need to embark on a journey of breaking down these institutions and creating new institutions in their stead, which would give us full rights of participation. Because if we don't do that, we are not going anywhere. And we can only do that if we unite as a people. Now, there are all kinds of institutions non-governmental organizations, and so on, which have been feeding us with poison for years. And what is this poison? Africans are constantly being told that to be able to develop, to move forward, and so on, we have to copy the example of Britain. They tell us that we have to copy the example of the United States of America, Germany, France, and so on. I insist that those examples can only take us to our doom. And we have to resist the temptation to follow those examples. Now, here are the reasons. How did these countries become what they are today? How did they accumulate the surpluses which enabled them to industrialize? How did they become the centers of finance, global finance, and so on? And you know the reason. You know how. These surpluses were accumulated through slavery. They captured us as beasts of burden. We worked for hundreds of years without pay. They colonized us, stole all of our resources, and they continue to steal our resources in order to maintain their systems and so on. You go to any African country and you look at the railway system and it tells the story. All the railway lines begin from areas where wealth is concentrated, gold mines, diamond mines, forest areas. Where do they end up? They end up in the ports. So the national infrastructure that we have Africa today was built in order to extract, to take things out of the continent and so on. That has to change. And that is not going to change by copying Germany, by copying Britain, by copying the United States of America and so on. We cannot copy them. That option is not available to us. Because today, who are you going to capture as slaves? To come and work for you for hundreds of years without pay so that you can accumulate surplus which become the basis of your development. That option is close to us as African people. Today, who are we going to colonize? Who are we going to colonize in the world today in order to accumulate the surpluses needed for our advancement? There's nobody to colonize. You understand? Why? All of you see the videos, you see the pictures and so on of the King of England or Queen of England riding in a gold chariot. You do know that that gold came from Cape Coast. And how was that gold taken to Britain? It was stolen. Whose gold are you going to steal in order to build those chariots and so on? It is not available to us. So we must begin to think anew and we must begin to realize that our only path to development and freedom lies in continental unity based on the collective self-reliance of the African people. That is the only path available to us as African people. There are some who have said that the task of uniting is too difficult because we speak too many languages. The European Union, do they speak one language? They don't. In the United States of America, there are people who don't speak English, whose language is Spanish. There are people who speak neither Spanish nor English and so on. They work together. Language is not a barrier. It's a diversity which we can cultivate, advance, and improve for our development. And we shouldn't listen to this garbage of language becoming a barrier to our development. The path to our development lies in the path which was defined in 1945 in Manchester by the 5th Pan-African Congress, which said that the path to freedom for Africa, the path to progress for Africa, lies first and foremost in jettioning the colonial yoke, beginning to take control of our resources and exploiting these resources for the benefit of our people, and ultimately continental unity based on the framework of scientific socialism. This is the formula our leaders gave us. This is the formula those who fought for national development in Africa gave us. This is the formula of George Padmore. This is the formula of W.E.B. Du Bois. This is the formula of Kwame Nkrumah. This is the formula of Sekou Touré. And this is the formula of all of our leaders who shaped the path that we seek to trod today. It's important. Democracy is important. Democracy ought to guide us in our effort to unite. But what democracy? Democracy essentially ought to be building a system of government which enables us to be who we are, which says that we are not Africans by mistakes, and that our being Africans should not become an impediment to advancement. That would be democratic. Democracy should be a system which enables the people in any society to realize their full potential as human beings. Democracy ought to be a system which enables us to own our resources and exploit these resources for our own benefit. Democracy ought to be about free expression. It ought to be a system which enables everybody in society to contribute their quota to shaping ideas and using these ideas in order to advance. Democracy is not about the hegemony of France, which is killing Africa. Today, we all know that French-speaking African countries are compelled by some existing arrangement to keep all of their foreign reserves in the Central Bank of France. That's a fact. They keep their foreign reserve in the Central Bank of France. The Central Bank of France accumulates resources. They go to borrow their own money, and they are required to pay interest on their own money that they have borrowed. How can they develop? So it is this system that we need to smash to the pieces in order to move forward. Now, friends, the idea of African unity is not new. It's not new at all. We do know that by February 24, 1966, we had established the Union of Ghana, Guinea, Mali. The Federation, the Confederation of Ghana, Guinea, Mali had been established by February 24, 1966. Indeed, now, there are documents which show that Patrice Lumumba of the Congo had agreed to join, so 4 African countries had decided to come together to form the nucleus of the United States of Africa. But you know why we didn't progress? We did not progress because the forces which benefit from our division, the forces which benefit from our exploitation and are responsible for the exploitation, decided to truncate those. So on February 24, 1966, they sponsored the military coup which overthrew Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's government. And the declassified documents of the Central Intelligence Agency of the USA clearly tells us the story of how the Nkrumah government was overthrown and why the Nkrumah government was overthrown. Since then, we have known no peace. They assassinated Patrice Lumumba of the Congo. Why? Because he was the fourth in line to join the Union of African States which was being created. They did not just execute him, they actually dissolved his body in acid because they were afraid that if his body was buried, his burial grounds could become grounds for pilgrimage for those who believed in African unity and so on. The Western intelligence officers who took part in the assassination of Patrice Lumumba actually removed his front teeth as souvenir. Today they talk about terrorism. What is more terrorist than this? That is why we are here today. They killed Sekoturi. They killed Chris Hani. But we must make them understand that we would never give up. And that no matter the number of leaders they kill, new ones would emerge in their place and will carry on this struggle for African unity and African liberation until final victory. I think it's also important for us to understand that we live in the world and we cannot be isolated from the world. And that is why the final resolution of the 5th Pan-African Congress called on all the working people of the world to unite. We believe in the unity of the working people of the world. That is where our salvation lies. We would achieve democracy because it is necessary for our forward movement, but the democracy we achieve will be a people's democracy. A democracy whose practice will ensure that no child in the world will go to bed on an empty stomach. Thank you all very much, and I'd like to announce that there's a very, very special, distinguished gentleman in our midst. I recognize Duruba bin Wahab in our midst. And for those of you who remember, Duruba bin Wahab was a leader of the Black Panther movement in the United States, along with Stokely Carmichael, who later became Kwame Ture and others, and who were fighting against racism and fighting to build a new United States of America. Duruba bin Wahab is in the back. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr., always serving some truth. I think Franklin wanted to make a few points to add. Okay, so after Franklin makes his points, then we'll take some questions from the audience. So, Franklin.
You know, anytime you're in a debate, more or less you're on a panel with Uncle Kwesi Pratt, you must always expect a very fiery debate, really. There are a few things he mentioned that I think I want to add a few points to it, or probably also respond a bit. The democracy can be described in many, many forms, right? And I accept that it may as well be known as a Western construct, but really, is it a Western construct? I mean, if you only need to go back to our African roots and you realize that even before the colonialists came, we had institutions of democracy that were practicing even within our fiefdoms, our villages, and what have you. In fact, even our cephalo societies had some form of order. But of course, those that were a bit more, should I call it, outliers, continued their wars even after today. One of which was supposed to be solved by the Asantehene yesterday. So you tend to think that if you go back to the roots, really, realize that democracy was actually, the tenets of democracy as in centralism of decision-making, I mean, to the extent that people are even allowed to ask questions if they are held before the king in the king's palace for doing one thing or the other, right? And by the way, if you also look at the institutions of democracy, one of which is free movement of people, there was extensive trade amongst Africans before the colonialists came, right? We had gold and ivory being exchanged all the way from Tagaza to the northern part of Africa. There was some relatable, should I call it, a serious amount of trade that occurred within Africa around that time. And if you recall that Mansa Musa, at the point, was able to collapse the price of gold by traveling all the way to Saudi Arabia. And all of that are parts of what I'll call tenets of a democracy, of course, which means that free trade is also a very important aspect. And Uncle mentions that we should trade amongst ourselves. I mean, it is not the fault of the white man that you don't trade amongst yourself today. I don't understand that. I mean, Ghana and Nigeria are neighbors. Nigeria can wake up one day and ban 92 products from Ghana entering Nigeria, but they're supposed to be part of ECOWAS, right? And then Ghana retaliates. GUTA members will say, we don't want to see Nigerians in our markets. What is that? We are all humans. The reasons why Nigerians are here is because the reasons why Nigerians and other foreigners are able to trade in Ghana and compete with Ghanaian traders simply because our economic systems are quite different. The interest rates are higher in Ghana than in Nigeria. Of course, the cost of the cost of borrowing money, and the cost of doing business is actually pretty high in Ghana than in Nigeria. These are things we need to fix. And on that score, I agree with Uncle Kwesi that we need to fix the issues around trade. If we're able to trade amongst ourselves, we'll definitely do quite a lot. I'm not entirely, I agree, there are constructs around the world. Nobody's going to fight for you. I mean, I think we always have to make the case that we can build our own economies and build our own democracies. We don't have to copy anybody's systems. That's the point I'm making. I really do not think that there's this huge imposition on us, as it were, to keep us drowning. Look, even in Africa, as I speak, there are countries like Botswana who were colonized. Mauritius was colonized. Why is Mauritius GDP per capita almost $13,000? And the backwaters of West Africa and other godforsaken countries are running around $1,000. These are the things we need to be looking at. I don't think we can externalize these reasons to the Western construct. Of course, the world is a hard place. Look, you have to struggle. It's a survival. I won't say survival of the fittest, but you need to be seen to be engaging and imbibing what I call common sense practices, governance practices, and the rule of law. Just the things that you need to do in a country. You and I are in this country. We all know that when you want to procure a service from any of these state institutions, sometimes you're asked to pay money. You know, all these things are part of the reasons why we do not probably do well advance as a country. I don't think Galamsey is an imposition from the West, is it, really? Even though people want gold, or we can fix it, can't we? We should be able to fix Galamsey. Galamsey is not caused by any construct somewhere. Of course, there may be external people who may be benefiting from the gold, but you have your own territory, you have your own country. Look at lithium. I had to go to the president 2 weeks ago. He called me and said, I'd like to hear Imani's view. And we went and said, listen, forget about all the frills about people coming to take our resources away, resource nationalism or resource capture. It is us. How do you negotiate a deal on lithium and you are using the figures of the financial figures of the company coming to invest in your resource as a basis to negotiate? It just doesn't make sense to me. I look at numbers. You tell me that the cost of producing an ore of lithium is about $610, right? But the price of lithium today is $1,200. The last time they were ready to sign the contract with the MPP, the price of lithium was $800 per ore. What it meant was that if you look at their cost and you look at the outreach price at the time, they were making about 20% margin, but they were willing to sign with the MPP. Now, well, a new government comes to power, and then all of a sudden they are telling us that the investor says they want more concessions because, first of all, the 5%, the 10% royalty is too much. We can do 5%, and they quote some fake laws, which are all lies, by the way. I told the president, no, the ministers, they are not telling the truth. There's another law which actually encourages the minister to look as a power to regulate and ensure that we get the maximum royalty. What about that? Then we tell the president, look, we have to do our own feasibility studies. If you don't do your own feasibility studies, then match your study against the numbers of the company is the only way you can have a good negotiation. I mean, to think that this lithium is a very important, should I call it mineral? It's a green mineral, and the derivatives of lithium are much more valuable than we have it right now. And to think that your country, your minister, is just willing to sign on the deal simply because he claims that people are in a hurry to do deals, it just didn't make sense. As we speak, they were going to make 40% profit. We all know that lithium prices could go up and down, but the nature of lithium is that, I mean, the chemical properties are such that you can derive more value than you want. And by the way, nobody holds a gun to your head to say that only export raw lithium and let the company take raw lithium and then go away with it. When you know that you can actually add value to it by processing. The processing aspect is what makes a country richer in these green minerals like lithium. That's what China has shown us. So I think it is important that some of these conversations, we should also be mindful that the decisions we take, economic decisions we take, which eventually come to bite us, are our own doing. And I'm happy that I managed to convince the president and the deal was taken out of parliament, because I was told the morning before it to be taken out of parliament. These are the things we need to start looking at strongly. And much as I agree that we should be, Uncle Kwesi, I really love your fight about reparations. It's really, really important. People who really cause us harm must be made to pay. But we are causing more harm to ourselves than even the colonialists did, right? So many of them. So I say that the tenets of democracy, once respected, once applied, could easily give you the excellence of life. Why should lithium be given away for free when you know that you can actually benefit from it? We've done that for, you recall a Japa. We're almost going to give the, how do you call it, gold, just like that, go into some people's pocket. Even the gold was not supposed to go into, the gold, Japa deal was not, how do I call it, a Japa deal was not a foreigner coming to say that, look, I'll pay you this particular price. It was our own people in government that were crookishly and crooked processes actually trying to take the gold for themselves. We don't have to do that we don't have to do such things to ourselves. So I thought I should mention a few of this because it's important that sometimes we do these things to ourselves. Right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. So in order not to waste too much time, if we can have, okay, wow. Ooh. I see like 10 hands. We can't take all the questions. I know this has been a very interesting time. So we can take three questions. Okay, the gentleman over there. Hey. And you, okay, so. Hat, yes. Yeah. Please go ahead.
All right. Thank you. And I want to use this opportunity to really commend the organizers of this event. My name is Benjamin Boateng. I'm the founder of International Center for Youth Counseling and Global Development, and also the CEO of Procon Investment Fund. And I must say, I'm also a proud disciple, political disciple of Honorable Alan Tremantin. And I want to first and foremost just talk about the fact that democracy, as Uncle Kwesi Pratt put it from his angle, it's obvious that it's highly debatable, the origin of it. Whichever the case, we cannot deny the fact that it has to do with people coming together and then governing themselves in the best way they can. And for that matter, democracy or not democracy, the will of the masses can never be taken out of the equation. As we can see in sub-Saharan Africa, day in, day out, the will of the masses is getting stronger and stronger. And then the will of the masses, obviously, is shaped by social narrative. Now, what Honorable Alachamanti always say is Ghana is a NATO country. That is no action, talk only. So my question is going to be directed to Imani Ghana. Because I want it to be very pragmatic. Back in the early 2000, when I was a student in the University of Ghana, student politics was just something admirable. Over the years, it has deteriorated. It has just but copied what we see at the national level. In our days, student politics was something that I could say an advocacy system where we put pressure on government. We identify issues and demonstrate and put pressure on government. About a decade now, that culture has just died. And that culture has died because, like I said, whether autocracy, whether democracy, it borders on the will of the people. Social narrative has changed the will of the youth as far as politics in this country, or even democracy and its tenets is concerned. We used to have... I'm asking a question, please. I'm just building a question, please. I'm building a question. So I'm asking Imani Ghana. We used to have debates, all right? Debates, national debates, anytime that there are elections. I do not know if Imani Ghana was involved. My question here is that, what are you doing to bring debate back? National debate. We're going to have elections, whether at the party level. We used to have debates where we would debate. So Imani Ghana, what is your plan? I know another election is going to come. How are we going to see economic debates, candidate debating, so that it can also change the will of the people through social
Thank you.
narrative.
Thank you. Please, let's be brief with our questions. Hey. This gentleman, and then we'll come to you. Please be brief. Thank
Okay.
you.
My name is Philip Fletcher Jolly too. I'm on my own for now. I actually see democracy as a two-edged sword. And I see the elite using democracy against we, the people who vote them into power. And the sad thing is that we are living the root. If you talk about Africa as we've started building a new united Africa, I think the root started with Ghana from Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. So all I want to ask is that, why are we neglecting the ideals and the ideas of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah? And we are dancing around each day, every 4 years, we vote people into power just to go and chop money. How are we going to stop this? Thank you.
Thank you. Last question over there. Hey. Person with the hat.
Good morning, everyone. This question is to Uncle Kwesi. Indeed, I share the same values and principles of Pan-Africanism as you do. And I think that for so long, as a continent and as a people, we've been taken for granted. Democracy, in its sense, I would say, started in Africa. If you look at the 13th century, under the leadership of the Malian king, Sundiata Keita, who created the Mandem Charter. The core principles of the Mandem Charter encompasses accountability, freedom, justice, equality, the rule of law, and indeed, love for humanity, and indeed, environmentalism. Today, when we talk about democracy in Africa, we try to mimic the Western system, which is not working for us. Socialism did not start in China, but today, the Chinese have found their characteristics embedded in socialism. My question is, how do we create an African democracy with African characteristics? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Last one. Okay, I have to choose a woman because she's the only one that raised her hand. So please, last one, just because. Thank you. Please be brief.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Nai Kindly. So my question is, understanding that most African countries' democracy may be flawed, and also noting the existing indices like the Mo Ibrahims, how can our experiences challenge traditional notions of state sovereignty and international interventions? And how can this approach manage existing pressures? And to Mr. Pratt, you stated that the foundation of democracy has been different over the years, and it has seen some positive shifts in modern society. What lessons could have been adopted from the former to promote the latter, and what needs to be redefined? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so over to you. Who would like to start? Okay.
My lady, your first question I couldn't quite comprehend. You probably want to repeat it. But I could answer the first two questions. And let me just say that the gentleman who had a whole prelude before his question on the leadership and the impact of student politics on national development, I'd like to say that I don't think people these days understand what service is about. I mean, I was a student leader back in tech. I actually contested one of the hotly contested elections. It was departmental level. I was president of Land Economy Students Association. I won by 13 votes. My competitor later won the Katanga presidency. So you can imagine that tough one. But you see, I contested because I had a goal in mind. I wanted to clear the debt that had been led by my previous two predecessors. We are sitting in class, and you see all these women who sell food and all of that come around asking for their money. I didn't feel quite right. I said, what's this? They are looking for, we owed money, we owed food, and all sort of stuff. I said, look, what's the problem? I went to the president at the time. What is the problem? He said, oh, we owe so much. How do you borrow to eat and then don't pay? And I thought that as a land economy student, I really did not like that at all. So I said, listen, I'm going to stand for the next election. Also give a facelift to what I now call the student members of Ghana Institution of Surveyors. I was the first president and I was the founder. But when I got involved, I actually won, went ahead, raised money, cleared the debt of my two previous predecessors, and I told the team I wasn't going again. Everybody wanted me to go again. I said, I've done my job. That's what I did. Fast forward to national politics. So my good friend Ken Oforiatta starts borrowing money like nobody's business. At the point he wanted to borrow $50 billion, he called the $50 billion, what they call century bond. And I asked him quietly, do you really think this is a sensible path? Are you sure we are helping this country by borrowing ad infinitum? He said, oh, we'll find money to pay, we can still grow the economy. I had my doubts. Anyway, they all came to pass. I'm just saying that service does not mean that you can make decisions just anyhow you want, but service also means you have a problem you want to solve and you have to fix it. As for the part that have to do with students who, and you see those things, by the way, students politicians come into office, national politics, and then behave like Arabian princes, start living large and doing all sorts of things. We've seen all of that before. So I just leave that on leadership. There was a question about the second question that was asked concerning, sorry, what was that again? There's a gentleman somewhere here. Sorry. Sorry, there's a gentleman here who asked. Yes. Yeah. You spoke too much, but what was your question again?
This question you are answering.
Yeah, but the first question, yeah, you asked the first question. Yes, I remember. Okay, there was a second question concerning.
I was the same person. Yeah, so I was the one who talked about student politics.
Okay.
And I talked about the fact that what is Imani Ghana, because debate, national debate, seems to be fading. So what are you doing to bring it back?
Well, I get there are various forms of debate. I'm sure just analyzing the policies of various political parties is also a form of debate. It's good to have people debate. The last time we tried to do the debate, well, Nanado said it was busy, and then the other candidate wanted to come. He said he's ready. They always do this anyway, right? So we ended up doing the debate with the smaller parties, which was an interesting debate. Ayariga and the gentleman who is school courses LPG. It was a very interesting debate. And I think we should be doing a lot more of such things, but it also requires tax, it requires resources. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Uncle Kwesi, about African democracy, building an African democracy with African characteristics, how do we?
Well, first of all, let me agree with my colleague and friend, Franklin Kujo, that our destiny ought to lie in our hands, and that we ought to shape our future, ought to shape our present and our future. But this is the reality. The reality now, currently, is that our destiny is not in our hands. Our destiny has been taken from our hands, and we have a responsibility to wrestle and take that destiny into our hands so that we can move forward. Now listen, I've been around for a little longer than some people, and I recall that after the 1966 coup, one of the things which was done was burning of books. Why would anybody burn books? Nkrumah's books were burnt in bonfire. Books about Nkrumah were burnt on university campus and so on. Why were they afraid of books? They were afraid of books because there were ideas of liberation in those books. There were ideas that challenged their domination in those books and so on. One of the things that I remember as a child going to secondary school and so on was simply the fact that our parliament, so-called democratic parliament, sat under a certificate of emergency. They sat for more than 24 hours continuous to do what? To ban the printing, holding, and distribution of Nkrumah's photographs. These are the forces we are dealing with. These are not democratic forces. These are oppressive and repressive establishments. And the only way out is to wage a relentless struggle against these forces of oppression and dictatorship. That's the only way forward for us. You see, don't let us create the impression that we are responsible for what we have and so on. Listen, is it not a fact that since 1966, Ghana has gone to the International Monetary Fund for bailout 18 times? Is that not a fact? And if we keep going to them 18 times, and every time we go to them, the problem gets worse, is our destiny in our own hands? I'm not so sure. Look, right now, and I think that Franklin Kujo knows the figures better than me, for every dollar that we receive as aid, for every $1 that we receive as aid, $24 leave our continent. That's a problem we have to fix. And you think they're interested in us fixing that problem? Because if we fix that problem, they will not be stealing $23 from our economy in order to develop their own institutions and so on. You may argue that we go to the World Bank and the IMF by ourselves and so on. Is that true? Countries which refuse to go to the IMF and World Bank are sanctioned. They overthrow their leaders, they kill them and so on. So it is not out of our free volition that we go to them. They force us to go to them. And when we go to them, they insist that we implement policies which will kill us, which would not make it possible for us to develop. How do you freeze public sector employment when we have so many problems with education, so many problems with health and so on? How do you freeze public sector employment? Does it make sense? We have followed their prescriptions over the last 30, 40, 50 years. What is the result? 400 industries built in order to facilitate import substitution have completely collapsed. We used to build vehicles here from the University of Science and Technology. It's no longer there. We used to sew our own shoes. The factory has collapsed. The glass factory has collapsed and so on. This is the result of a deliberate policy to keep us down. Deliberate policy to keep us down. And these are the policies that we need to resist with everything that we have if we are to move forward. There's a question about African democracy and so on. You see, in this, whatever it is, I don't think that we have to engage in fancy thinking. What is African democracy? You say, go back to the roots, do what our ancestors did, adopt chieftaincy and so on. You do know that today, in many parts of Africa, at least I can talk about Ghana, albinos are excluded from participation in government. You know that. Is that the system we should go to? A system which discriminates against albinos, a system which discriminates against women, and so on? Is that what we should go to? You do know, for example, that in some of our traditional areas, you are excluded from participation in government if you have a scar on your skin. Just a scar on your skin, and so on. How can this system be democratic? And sometimes people come from North America, they come from the USA and so on, and they see people being carried in palanquin, and they think it's African culture, and they say, let's get back to it and so on. If today you are still thinking about an African future in which leaders are carried in palanquin, we are bankrupt, you are antiquated, we have no relevance to our development. Let's think about why these things were done. Chiefs were carried in palanquins because they were generals when we went to war. And when the general was captured, the war was over. We didn't want them to walk. We didn't want them to get tired so that the enemy could capture them and so on. So we put them in palanquins. Today, tanks have been developed. Armored vehicles have been developed. If you are still putting your war leaders in palanquins, there is something wrong with you. Today, you don't even have a situation where soldiers carry spear and face each other on the battlefield and squeeze each other and so on. Drone warfare is now what is in vogue. Let's grow up and let's think. That return to African chieftaincy and so on is completely backward. We need to move forward. We need to build modern institutions that enable us to take control of our destiny, to take control of our resources, and to exploit these resources for our own benefit. Now, my friends, I am absolutely confident that Africa will rise again, that Africa and Africans will be in a position to take full control of their resources and exploit these resources for their benefit, and that the unity which Nkrumah, Sékou Touré, Modibo Keïta, and others dreamt about will become a reality sooner than later. Africa will rise again. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Uncle Kwesi. Please be brief. So Franklin wants to just respond to one more question and then we'll be closing.
Concluding remarks.
Okay, concluding, great.
All right. Uncle Kwesi, I'm not a fan of aid at all, by the way. Just for you to know, Hello, can you hear me? I recall that you're right, $1 given to us and then 23 or whatever goes out. It's called the phantom aid phenomenon, which is very true. President Kagame, and I remember quoting him in a Wall Street Journal article I did in 2005, said something that, look, how can you tell me that we are fighting poverty in Rwanda when I look at the budget of these NGOs and $5 million, $1 million goes into paying for furniture, $1 million into entertainment, $1 million into salaries, $1 million into some other thing, leaving just $1 million to fight poverty in Rwanda. That's not how aid is being used, which is why I'm a champion, by the way. I supported Trump to cut back all this aid as we speak. Look, the USAID, for instance, gives Ghana $168 million maximum a year. What is $168 million to? You know the theft that went on in the last 8 years, sorry, I have to say this, it just builds into insignificance. And thankfully, President Mahama said, I have to fix it, fix that hole. $168 million is chicken change. If you have built those dams, dugouts, which, what's the name of that woman again? Dugout, which could cost just about 500 cities or 1,000 cities, was budgeted for 250,000 cities. You bring these things upon yourself. We saw the economy doing well. 17, 18, 19, they started spending like nobody's business. We saw it. We made noise. We said, stop the carnage. You are going to get there. All of a sudden, 54% interest rate, inflation. Which other country in Africa had 54%? Not even Sudan at the time had 54% interest rate, inflation rate. You brought this upon yourself. Issue about aid. I recall that it was a debate I was having in London at BBC with a gentleman from Christian Aid who said, a child dies in Africa, every 3 seconds a child dies of poverty, hunger, malnutrition, and whatever. And at the time, I'd done a calculation of all the money that gets stolen through grand corruption. Grand corruption, by the way, is different from petty theft. Grand corruption is the contract, the big things that African elites try to do. And I calculated the amount that goes into grand corruption, which figure was given by the AU, by the way. I said the AU says they themselves actually steal $149 billion every year. That was 25% of Africa's GDP at the time. If you calculated all the seconds in the year, match it against the 159 billion, you were getting $4,700 being stolen in a second on the continent. Now, you ask yourself, is this a Western imposition? Really? This figure, by the way, was quoted in this figure I gave was quoted by an MP, a Conservative MP in the British House of Parliament, when they were debating money for Africa at the time. And I'm happy to have contributed to that. That money was slashed to Africa by almost 2/3. We are our own creation, we are our own problems, and I think it is important to state the fact. I don't think it is fair to be saying that almost everything that happens to us is in the stars, is caused by some other people. We can deal with our own issues. Start by cutting your coat according to your cloth. That's what we're doing. What did Mahama do? 120-something ministers to 59. Aren't we leaving? Aren't we briefing? Are we not briefing? This is not politics. This is just sensible. And I calculated how much money would have saved at the end of the Mahama's term. 3 billion Ghana cedis, including emoluments, if you do away with Article 71 holders. That's 3 billion choppable Ghana cedis. You saved. Under the old regime, to have vanished into thin air. You know, our contracts were being given. I'm sorry, this is not politics. I just want to say, one more minute. I see this contract that we're giving. I'm just talking about what we do to ourselves. No Westerner came to tell us that give a contract to people, then give them money to go and mobilize. Agenda 111, 100 million Ghana cedis was given to people to just go and chop, go and do something. Recently, I was at Get Fund to get projects from my alma mater. You know, Lolobi, and for Lolobi, I was part of SAL. That was denied representation. One of the reasons I said I would never forgive my good friend Anado, because they did all these things to us, but I didn't mind. I went to Get Fund and said, listen, we were denied, so can you help us get projects? They said, oh, we'll give you 5 projects. Fine, your school, St. Mary's will get 5 projects. But please, note, this is a new order. Nobody is going to give any contractor money to start. They should go and mobilize themselves, build credibility, and they will pay them the money. They said I should go and look for contractors. I said, hey, I'm not part of those. I won't do that thing, because nobody will come and accuse me of going to get some 10%. I don't want it. So you do the publication, and they publish the thing in the papers. Contractors will bid, I don't care. But they said no mobilization. And Ato says, I won't do mobilization. Why? Why do you do these things to ourselves? I've seen the budget, I've seen the bill, billions of cedis just wasted in contract. These things we do to ourselves, it will translate into not getting good, what's it called? The young girls who go to school without pads, right? It's not a Westerner who should come and do these things for us. If you save this money, the 260 million cedis that you need to give pads to girls for a year can actually be doubled, can actually build a factory. Alan wanted to build factories, right? Do sensible stuff. Well, of course, somebody else thought something else, right? So I think it is important that we ask ourselves, the things we do to ourselves, the mega bad things we do to ourselves, the examples we give to us, are they really the cause of some Westerner? Uncle Kwesi Pratt is right about being to the IMF 18 times. Most likely we will go if these guys also fail us. But they don't want to go because I'm seeing the numbers, and Ato tells me, listen, I came here, I've seen what I've seen, I'll try to do well. I said, well, you're a young man. I don't want to hear, do you feel comfortable to hear that people will say, oh, when he was a finance minister, he stole money? It's just not dignified. And I feel sorry for my friend Ken, what is happening to him. But he brought it upon himself because we saw the things. So I'm saying that these things that we talk about, they are not constellations in the galaxy. People have planned to force these things on us. It is we ourselves who do these things. And it is important that we can deal with these matters quite creditably. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Franklin and Uncle Kwesi. So basically, they've given us very varying views. You've got the looking inward into ourselves, looking at corruption, looking at, what we do to ourselves in Africa. And then, of course, Uncle Kwesi giving the outward view where, there are forces, his words exactly, there are forces that benefit from our division. And we need to, face those forces head on. So I want to say thank you to both speakers. It's been a very interesting discussion, and if we can give them a round of applause. Thank you so much. Lastly, if you have more questions, you can kindly send them to info@sensadev.org. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Genevieve. A round of applause for them one more time. Genevieve Partington, our panel chair, and also to our very insightful speakers, Franklin Kujo, and also Uncle Kwesi Pratt Jr. I told you this session will be interesting, and I've had a quick history lesson and also a lesson on our culture and how even palanquins came to being. I had no idea. And I'm sure for a lot of the young people in the house, you didn't know either, or did you? Yes, so we're learning, and we're also having the conversations that we need to have as Africans if we want to be able to move this agenda of a united Africa. We're moving from dialogue and vision to action, and that is the aim of the summit. Now, we're going to have 4 additional plenary sessions today. After lunch, we're going to be looking at the creative sector, enhancing the creative sector to encourage economic growth. And for a lot of us who are in the creative sector in this room, this is a conversation that we're looking forward to, and it'll be chaired by our very own Gideon Ayikwe. So I'm looking forward to that session. We're also going to be talking about healthcare and human capital. These sessions will happen after lunch. The parallel sessions are also happening upstairs. So if at any point in time you'd like to go upstairs to the Stafford room, you may do so. We're here till about 5:30 p.m. today. And for our sessions after lunch, I am very, very happy to introduce to you my colleague, seasoned journalist, interviewer, one of the interviewers or journalists who, if you are a politician or a public sector worker, if you go sit in front of her or across the table from her to be interviewed, you must come with all your facts straight, because she will fact check everything you say and should ensure that she gets what the people need to know out of you. She's bilingual. She's been doing this for decades, 2 decades, almost 2 decades. I'm happy to introduce you to our moderator for the remaining sessions, Miss Beatrice Edu, journalist, TV show host, morning show host with TV3. A round of applause for her as she joins us.
Merci, Nashoko. Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs distingués. Je suis très ravie d'être entre vous cet après-midi. I'm very delighted to be here this afternoon, and all the great stuff that we've already learned. And I'm also looking forward to all the great stuff that will be happening. So thank you once again, Nashoko. And yes, very shortly, we're going to I think now we're going to break for our lunch. And of course, when we come back, like you heard my colleagues say, we'll have that session, another exciting one that I'm looking forward to, enhancing the use of the creative industry as a catalyst for economic growth in Africa. We are all looking forward to that. What will come out of after and all of that. Once again, good afternoon. My name is Beatrice Edu, and I'm happy to take over for the next sessions. So please, without much ado, we would say that we'll break for our lunch now, and when we come back, we'll continue with the rest of the sessions. Thank you so much. Hope to see you soon.
Once upon a time, in the heart of Ghana, a vision was born, a vision to manufacture and serve the people of Ghana and the world with exceptional alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages. This vision became the foundation of AccraAccra PLC, a true embodiment of passion, innovation, and the relentless pursuit of excellence. Our story begins with a humble garage facility where our founder, Dr. Kwabena Ejay, dared to dream big.
I started with only 5 people. 5 people, and everything was done manually. For 5 years, it was only this tank that we are using. We're using our hand to do the threading, do the labeling. We're cooking the bottles manually with hot water and boiling our bottle with firewood. I used to put my hand in the hot water and give it to the ladies to wash.
Fueled by an unwavering determination, he embarked on a journey to create a company that would not only redefine the beverage industry, but also uplift the lives of the people it served. With limited resources but boundless ambition, Dr. Ejay started experimenting with the finest local ingredients, meticulously crafting unique recipes that would captivate the senses. Every day was a learning experience, a step closer to perfection. Through trials and triumphs, he transformed the garage into a laboratory of taste, innovation, and quality. As the word spread about our remarkable beverages, the demand grew exponentially. From the humble beginnings, AccraAccra PLC expanded its operations, investing in state-of-the-art production facilities and assembling a team of passionate experts. Our commitment to excellence drove us to pioneer groundbreaking techniques and technologies, ensuring that every bottle that left our facility was a testament to our unwavering standards. But our journey doesn't stop there. AccraAccra PLC is more than a beverage manufacturer. It is a catalyst for positive change. Guided by the belief that businesses should serve a greater purpose, we launched the One for Life campaign, a revolutionary initiative focused on saving lives and spreading hope.
Where every bottle you purchase, an amount is donated to the National Cardiothoracic Center. And as the last 2 years, our contribution has saved 53 patients.
Additionally, we extend support to vulnerable communities through the donation of mechanized boreholes, enhancing access to clean water. The impact of the One for Life campaign is profound. It goes beyond just the financial contribution. It creates a ripple effect of hope and healing within communities. Today, AccraAccra PLC stands tall as a respected name in the beverage industry, proudly bearing the legacy of its founders' humble beginnings. We continue to innovate, crafting an extensive portfolio of exceptional alcoholic and non-alcoholic drinks that cater to the diverse taste and preferences of our customers. But our success is not measured solely by profits or market share. It is measured by the smiles we bring, the lives we touch, and the positive impact we make. We remain committed to our roots, embracing our responsibility to uplift communities and empower individuals through sustainable business practices and impactful initiatives. As we journey forward, we invite you to be a part of our story, a story that celebrates the spirit of Ghana, the power of innovation, and the boundless potential of humanity. Together, let us raise a glass to a brighter future, one filled with great beverages, heartfelt connections, and a shared commitment to making a positive difference in the world. This is the story of AccraAccra PLC, a story of passion, purpose, and the relentless pursuit of excellence. Cheers to the journey ahead.
The African Export-Import Bank, a proudly Pan-African institution with a vision to transform Africa's trade. Our mission: to stimulate a consistent expansion, diversification, and development of African trade, while operating as a first-class, profit-oriented, socially responsible financial institution and a center of excellence in African trade matters. Today, we represent global Africa, with 53 participating African states and 13 participating Caribbean states. Our strategy to realize impact through purposeful interventions based around 4 pillars. Pillar 1, intra-African trade and AFCFTA implementation. Pillar 2, industrialization and export development. Pillar 3, leadership in global trade banking in Africa. And Pillar 4, financial sustainability. AccraAccra, transforming Africa's trade.
Trade is changing at the speed of thought. At DB World, we don't just keep up, we clear the way.
We're a global supply chain force that anticipates where your business is moving and gets you the right solution before you know you need it.
Our systems and teams worldwide work seamlessly for you over sea, air, and land.
Others look to connect dots. We integrate it all to serve as an extension of your business.
At DP World, our global reach means more than just scale.
It means reliable, agile, intelligent supply chains that give you true peace of mind.
And together, we keep your business moving. Smarter, faster, safer.
We're transforming how trade flows. Predictive analytics and real-time tracking to green shipping and smart ports, unlocking growth at every turn.
Your business
can't wait.
And neither
can you.
It's time
to change what's possible.
In today's fast-moving business landscape, great ideas are not enough. Real success demands something deeper. At Empretech Ghana, we develop the entrepreneur behind the enterprise. As the nation's leading entrepreneur training institution and a proud member of the global Empretech network, we are committed to building a vibrant, competitive private sector driven by strong micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. Many believe that money or technical skills alone guarantee success, but evidence shows otherwise. Sustainable growth comes from the mindset, knowledge, and attitude of the entrepreneur. That is where transformation truly begins. Through our internationally acclaimed training methodology, Empretech Ghana equips startups and growth-oriented businesses with the confidence, commitment, creativity, and execution discipline required to turn ideas into thriving ventures. From agribusiness and manufacturing to technology, digital innovation, climate resilience, and waste management, we help enterprises grow, diversify, and compete globally. Our mission is clear: to build high-quality, growth-driven entrepreneurs for Ghana and beyond. Our vision is bold: to be the center of excellence in business development services across Africa. Visit us at 24 Guilford Teta Avenue, East Legon, Accra. Call us on 0532-880-633 or email info@empretechghana.org. Follow us on all platforms. Empretech Ghana Foundation. Empretech Ghana, a different approach to entrepreneurship development.
AccraAccra Holdings, the force driving Ghana's next wave of growth. Through Quick Angels, we invest in vision. Through Bill's Microcredit, we empower the hardworking. Through the AccraAccra Foundation, we give back, creating impact that lasts. Together, we've turned local dreams into thriving national brands. AccraAccra Holdings, building wealth with purpose.
The African Export-Import Bank, a proudly Pan-African institution with a vision to transform Africa's trade. Our mission: to stimulate a consistent expansion, diversification, and development of African trade, while operating as a first-class, profit-oriented, socially responsible financial institution and a center of excellence in African trade matters. We are now the AccraAccra Group, comprising AccraAccra, our subsidiaries, FEDA, the Fund for Export Development in Africa, and AccraInsure, offering specialized insurance for trade and investment in Africa, and our managed trust funds. We are headquartered in Cairo, with 6 regional offices and 1 in the Caribbean. Today, we represent global Africa, with 53 participating African states and 13 participating Caribbean states. Our strategy: to realize impact through purposeful interventions based around 4 pillars. Through Pillar 1, intra-African trade and AFCFTA implementation, we promote intra-African trade via initiatives, including the Intra-African Trade Fair, to drive exposure for Africa's brands, goods, and services. The AFCFTA Adjustment Fund, to help African states adjust to the AFCFTA trading environment. The AccraAccra African Collaborative Transit Guarantee Scheme, to streamline movement of goods across African borders. And the Creative African Nexus, to support Africa's cultural industries. For Pillar 2, industrialization and export development, we have introduced multiple initiatives, including the African Medical Center of Excellence, to improve Africa's healthcare landscape, our African Quality Assurance Centers, to test and certificate Africa's products, industrial parks and export processing zones, to advance industrialization and tackle commodity dependence, and our Project Preparation Unit, to support supply of investment-ready projects on the continent. For Pillar 3, leadership in global trade banking in Africa, initiatives include our Trade Finance Program to promote African trade and Direct Financing Program providing financing and trade-related facilities to corporates. We also continually drive innovation and digitalization through our Africa Trade Gateway, a digital ecosystem that incorporates PAPS, Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, to expedite cross-border payments in Africa. MANSA, a single source of primary data for due diligence checks on African entities. TRADAR, a centralized digital hub of market intelligence and regulations for African markets. And AccraAccra TradeLink, enabling buyers to borrow against supplier invoices. And for Pillar 4, financial sustainability, AccraAccra performs strongly. The bank more than doubled its total assets and contingencies in half a decade, from $15.97 billion in 2019 to $40.1 billion in 2024. The AccraAccra Group has an experienced executive management team led by its president, Dr. George Ilombi, and high-caliber staff at every level, honored to serve our continent with tireless dedication. AccraAccra, transforming Africa's trade.
Once upon a time, in the heart of Ghana, a vision was born, a vision to manufacture and serve the people of Ghana and the world with exceptional beverages. This vision became the foundation of AccraAccra PLC, a true embodiment of passion, innovation, and the relentless pursuit of excellence. Our story begins with a humble garage facility where our founder, Dr. Kwabena Ejay, dared to dream big.
I started with only 5 people. 5 people, and everything was done manually. For 5 years, it was only this tank that we are using. We're using our hand to do the threading, do the labeling. We're cooking the bottles manually with hot water and boiling our bottle with firewood. I used to put my hand in the hot water and give it to the ladies to wash.
Fueled by an unwavering determination, he embarked on a journey to create a company that would not only redefine the beverage industry, but also uplift the lives of the people it served. With limited resources but boundless ambition, Dr. Ejay started experimenting with the finest local ingredients, meticulously crafting unique recipes that would captivate the senses. Every day was a learning experience, a step closer to perfection. Through trials and triumphs, he transformed the garage into a laboratory of taste, innovation, and quality. As the word spread about our remarkable beverages, the demand grew exponentially. From the humble beginnings, AccraAccra PLC expanded its operations, investing in state-of-the-art production facilities and assembling a team of passionate experts. Our commitment to excellence drove us to pioneer groundbreaking techniques and technologies, ensuring that every bottle that left our facility was a testament to our unwavering standards. But our journey doesn't stop there. AccraAccra PLC is more than a beverage manufacturer. It is a catalyst for positive change. Guided by the belief that businesses should serve a greater purpose, we launched the One for Life campaign, a revolutionary initiative focused on saving lives and spreading hope.
Where every bottle you purchase, an amount is donated to the National Cardiothoracic Center. And as the last 2 years, our contribution has saved 53 patients.
Additionally, we extend support to vulnerable communities through the donation of mechanized boreholes, enhancing access to clean water. The impact of the One for Life campaign is profound. It goes beyond just the financial contribution. It creates a ripple effect of hope and healing within communities. Today, AccraAccra PLC stands tall as a respected name in the beverage industry, proudly bearing the legacy of its founders' humble beginnings. We continue to innovate, crafting an extensive portfolio of exceptional alcoholic and non-alcoholic drinks that cater to the diverse tastes and preferences of our customers. But our success is not measured solely by profits or market share. It is measured by the smiles we bring, the lives we touch, and the positive impact we make. We remain committed to our roots, embracing our responsibility to uplift communities and empower individuals through sustainable business practices and impactful initiatives. As we journey forward, we invite you to be a part of our story, a story that celebrates the spirit of Ghana, the power of innovation, and the boundless potential of humanity. Together, let us raise a glass to a brighter future, one filled with great beverages, heartfelt connections, and a shared commitment to making a positive difference in the world. This is the story of AccraAccra PLC, a story of passion, purpose, and the relentless pursuit of excellence. Cheers to the journey ahead.
The African Export-Import Bank, a proudly Pan-African institution with a vision to transform Africa's trade. Our mission: to stimulate a consistent expansion, diversification, and development of African trade, while operating as a first-class, profit-oriented, socially responsible financial institution and a center of excellence in African trade matters. Today, we represent global Africa, with 53 participating African states and 13 participating Caribbean states. Our strategy: to realize impact through purposeful interventions based around 4 pillars. Pillar 1, intra-African trade and AfCFTA implementation. Pillar 2, industrialization and export development. Pillar 3, leadership in global trade banking in Africa. And Pillar 4, financial sustainability. AccraAccra, transforming Africa's trade.
Trade is changing at the speed of thought. At DB World, we don't just keep up, we clear the way.
We're a global supply chain force that anticipates where your business is moving and gets you the right solution before you know you need it.
Our systems and teams worldwide work seamlessly for you over sea, air, and land.
Others look to connect dots. We integrate it all to serve as an extension of your business.
At DP World, our global reach means more than just scale.
It means reliable, agile, intelligent supply chains that give you true peace of mind.
And together, we keep your business moving. Smarter, faster, safer.
We're transforming how trade flows. Predictive analytics and real-time tracking to green shipping and smart ports, unlocking growth at every turn.
Your business
can't wait.
And neither
can you.
It's time
to change what's possible.
In today's fast-moving business landscape, great ideas are not enough. Real success demands something deeper. At Empretech Ghana, we develop the entrepreneur behind the enterprise. As the nation's leading entrepreneur training institution and a proud member of the global Empretech network, we are committed to building a vibrant, competitive private sector driven by strong micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. Many believe that money or technical skills alone guarantee success, but evidence shows otherwise. Sustainable growth comes from the mindset, knowledge, and attitude of the entrepreneur. That is where transformation truly begins. Through our internationally acclaimed training methodology, Empretech Ghana equips startups and growth-oriented businesses with the confidence, commitment, creativity, and execution discipline required to turn ideas into thriving ventures. From agribusiness and manufacturing to technology, digital innovation, climate resilience, and waste management, we help enterprises grow, diversify, and compete globally. Our mission is clear: to build high-quality, growth-driven entrepreneurs for Ghana and beyond. Our vision is bold: to be the center of excellence in business development services across Africa. Visit us at 24 Guilford Teta Avenue, East Legon, Accra. Call us on 0532-880-633 or email info@empretechghana.org. Follow us on all platforms. Empretech Ghana Foundation. Empretech Ghana. A different approach to entrepreneurship development.
AccraAccra Holdings, the force driving Ghana's next wave of growth. Through Quick Angels, we invest in vision. Through Bill's Microcredit, we empower the hardworking. Through the AccraAccra Foundation, we give back, creating impact that lasts. Together, we've turned local dreams into thriving national brands. AccraAccra Holdings, building wealth with purpose.
The African Export-Import Bank, a proudly Pan-African institution with a vision to transform Africa's trade. Our mission: to stimulate a consistent expansion, diversification, and development of African trade, while operating as a first-class, profit-oriented, socially responsible financial institution and a center of excellence in African trade matters. We are now the AccraAccra Bank Group, comprising AccraAccra Bank, our subsidiaries, FEDA, the Fund for Export Development in Africa, and AccraAccra, offering specialized insurance for trade and investment in Africa, and our managed trust funds. We are headquartered in Cairo, with 6 regional offices and 1 in the Caribbean. Today, we represent global Africa, with 53 participating African states and 13 participating Caribbean states. Our strategy: to realize impact through purposeful interventions based around 4 pillars. Through Pillar 1, intra-African trade and AFCFTA implementation, we promote intra-African trade via initiatives, including the Intra-African Trade Fair, to drive exposure for Africa's brands, goods, and services. The AFCFTA Adjustment Fund, to help African states adjust to the AFCFTA trading environment. The AccraAccra Bank African Collaborative Transit Guarantee Scheme, to streamline movement of goods across African borders. And the Creative African Nexus, to support Africa's cultural industries. For Pillar 2, industrialization and export development, we have introduced multiple initiatives, including the African Medical Center of Excellence, to improve Africa's healthcare landscape, our African Quality Assurance Centers, to test and certificate Africa's products, industrial parks and export processing zones, to advance industrialization and tackle commodity dependence, and our Project Preparation Unit, to support supply of investment-ready projects on the continent. For Pillar 3, leadership in global trade banking in Africa, initiatives include our Trade Finance Program to promote African trade and Direct Financing Program, providing financing and trade-related facilities to corporates. We also continually drive innovation and digitalization through our Africa Trade Gateway, a digital ecosystem that incorporates PAPS, Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, to expedite cross-border payments in Africa. MANSA, a single source of primary data for due diligence checks on African entities. TRADAR, a centralized digital hub of market intelligence and regulations for African markets, and AccraAccra TradeLink, enabling buyers to borrow against supplier invoices. And for Pillar 4, financial sustainability, AccraAccra performs strongly. The bank more than doubled its total assets and contingencies in half a decade, from $15.97 billion in 2019 to $40.1 billion in 2024. The AccraAccra Group has an experienced executive management team led by its president, Dr. George Ilombi, and high-caliber staff at every level, honored to serve our continent with tireless dedication. AccraAccra, transforming Africa's trade.
Once upon a time, in the heart of Ghana, a vision was born, a vision to manufacture and serve the people of Ghana and the world with exceptional alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages. This vision became the foundation of AccraAccra PLC, a true embodiment of passion, innovation, and the relentless pursuit of excellence. Our story begins with a humble garage facility where our founder, Dr. Kwabena Ejay, dared to dream big.
I started with only 5 people. 5 people, and everything was done manually. For 5 years, it was only this tank that we are using. We're using our hand to do the threading, do the labeling. We're cooking the bottles manually with hot water and boiling our bottle with firewood. I used to put my hand in the hot water and give it to the ladies to wash.
Fueled by an unwavering determination, he embarked on a journey to create a company that would not only redefine the beverage industry, but also uplift the lives of the people it served. With limited resources but boundless ambition, Dr. Ejay started experimenting with the finest local ingredients, meticulously crafting unique recipes that would captivate the senses. Every day was a learning experience, a step closer to perfection. Through trials and triumphs, he transformed the garage into a laboratory of taste, innovation, and quality. As the word spread about our remarkable beverages, the demand grew exponentially. From the humble beginnings, AccraAccra PLC expanded its operations, investing in state-of-the-art production facilities and assembling a team of passionate experts. Our commitment to excellence drove us to pioneer groundbreaking techniques and technologies, ensuring that every bottle that left our facility was a testament to our unwavering standards. But our journey doesn't stop there. AccraAccra PLC is more than a beverage manufacturer. It is a catalyst for positive change. Guided by the belief that businesses should serve a greater purpose, we launched the One for Life campaign, a revolutionary initiative focused on saving lives and spreading hope.
Where every bottle you purchase, an amount is donated to the National Cardiothoracic Center. And that's the last 3 years, our contribution has saved 53 patients.
Additionally, we extend support to vulnerable communities through the donation of mechanized boreholes, enhancing access to clean water. The impact of the One for Life campaign is profound. It goes beyond just the financial contribution. It creates a ripple effect of hope and healing within communities. Today, AccraAccra PLC stands tall as a respected name in the beverage industry, proudly bearing the legacy of its founders' humble beginnings. We continue to innovate, crafting an extensive portfolio of exceptional alcoholic and non-alcoholic drinks that cater to the diverse tastes and preferences of our customers. But our success is not measured solely by profits or market share. It is measured by the smiles we bring, the lives we touch, and the positive impact we make. We remain committed to our roots, embracing our responsibility to uplift communities and empower individuals through sustainable business practices and impactful initiatives. As we journey forward, we invite you to be a part of our story, a story that celebrates the spirit of Ghana, the power of innovation, and the boundless potential of humanity. Together, let us raise a glass to a brighter future, one filled with great beverages, heartfelt connections, and a shared commitment to making a positive difference in the world. This is the story of AccraAccra PLC, a story of passion, purpose, and the relentless pursuit of excellence. Cheers to the journey ahead.
The African Export-Import Bank, a proudly Pan-African institution with a vision to transform Africa's trade. Our mission: to stimulate a consistent expansion, diversification and development of African trade, while operating as a first-class, profit-oriented, socially responsible financial institution and a center of excellence in African trade matters. Today, we represent global Africa, with 53 participating African states and 13 participating Caribbean states. Our strategy: to realize impact through purposeful interventions based around 4 pillars. Pillar 1, intra-African trade and AfCFTA implementation. Pillar 2, industrialization and export development. Pillar 3, leadership in global trade banking in Africa. And Pillar 4, financial sustainability. AccraAccra, transforming Africa's trade.
Trade is changing at the speed of thought. At DB World, we don't just keep up, we clear the way.
We're a global supply chain force that anticipates where your business is moving and gets you the right solution before you know you need it.
Our systems and teams worldwide work seamlessly for you over sea, air, and land.
Others look to connect dots. We integrate it all to serve as an extension of your business.
At DP World, our global reach means more than just scale.
It means reliable, agile, intelligent supply chains that give you true peace of mind.
And together, we keep your business moving. Smarter, faster, safer.
We're transforming how trade flows. Predictive analytics and real-time tracking to green shipping and smart ports, unlocking growth at every turn.
Your business
can't wait.
And neither
can you.
It's time
to change what's possible.
In today's fast-moving business landscape, great ideas are not enough. Real success demands something deeper. At AccraAccra Ghana, we develop the entrepreneur behind the enterprise. As the nation's leading entrepreneur training institution and a proud member of the global AccraAccra network, we are committed to building a vibrant, competitive private sector driven by strong micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. Many believe that money or technical skills alone guarantee success, but evidence shows otherwise. Sustainable growth comes from the mindset, knowledge, and attitude of the entrepreneur. That is where transformation truly begins. Through our internationally acclaimed training methodology, AccraAccra Ghana equips startups and growth-oriented businesses with the confidence, commitment, creativity, and execution discipline required to turn ideas into thriving ventures. From agribusiness and manufacturing to technology, digital innovation, climate resilience, and waste management, we help enterprises grow, diversify, and compete globally. Our mission is clear: to build high-quality, growth-driven entrepreneurs for Ghana and beyond. Our vision is bold: to be the center of excellence in business development services across Africa. Visit us at 24 Guilford Teta Avenue, East Legon, Accra. Call us on 0532-880-633 or email info@empritekghana.org. Follow us on all platforms. Emprotech Ghana Foundation. Emprotech Ghana. A different approach to entrepreneurship development.
AccraAccra Holdings, the force driving Ghana's next wave of growth. Through Quick Angels, we invest in vision. Through Bill's Microcredit, we empower the hardworking. Through the AccraAccra Foundation, we give back, creating impact that lasts. Together, we've turned local dreams into thriving national brands. AccraAccra Holdings, building wealth with purpose.
The African Export-Import Bank, a proudly Pan-African institution with a vision to transform Africa's trade. Our mission: to stimulate a consistent expansion, diversification and development of African trade while operating as a first-class, profit-oriented, socially responsible financial institution and a center of excellence in African trade matters. We are now the AccraAccra Group, comprising AccraAccra, our subsidiaries, FEDA, the Fund for Export Development in Africa, and AccraInsure, offering specialized insurance for trade and investment in Africa, and our managed trust funds. We are headquartered in Cairo, with 6 regional offices and 1 in the Caribbean. Today, we represent global Africa, with 53 participating African states and 13 participating Caribbean states. Our strategy: to realize impact through purposeful interventions based around 4 pillars. Through Pillar 1, intra-African trade and AfCFTA implementation, we promote intra-African trade via initiatives, including the Intra-African Trade Fair, to drive exposure for Africa's brands, goods and services. The AfCFTA Adjustment Fund, to help African states adjust to the AfCFTA trading environment. The AccraAccra African Collaborative Transit Guarantee Scheme, to streamline movement of goods across African borders. And the Creative African Nexus, to support Africa's cultural industries. For Pillar 2, industrialization and export development, we have introduced multiple initiatives, including the African Medical Center of Excellence, to improve Africa's healthcare landscape, our African Quality Assurance Centers, to test and certificate Africa's products, industrial parks and export processing zones, to advance industrialization and tackle commodity dependence, and our Project Preparation Unit, to support supply of investment-ready projects on the continent. For Pillar 3, leadership in global trade banking in Africa, initiatives include our Trade Finance Program to promote African trade and Direct Financing Program providing financing and trade-related facilities to corporates. We also continually drive innovation and digitalization through our Africa Trade Gateway, a digital ecosystem that incorporates PAPS, Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, to expedite cross-border payments in Africa. MANSA, a single source of primary data for due diligence checks on African entities. TRADAR, a centralized digital hub of market intelligence and regulations for African markets. And AccraAccra TradeLink, enabling buyers to borrow against supplier invoices. And for Pillar 4, financial sustainability, AccraAccra performs strongly. The bank more than doubled its total assets and contingencies in half a decade, from $15.97 billion in 2019 to $40.1 billion in 2024. The AccraAccra Group has an experienced executive management team led by its president, Dr. George Ilombi, and high-caliber staff at every level, honored to serve our continent with tireless dedication. AccraAccra, transforming Africa's trade.
Once upon a time, in the heart of Ghana, a vision was born, a vision to manufacture and serve the people of Ghana and the world with exceptional alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages. This vision became the foundation of AccraAccra PLC, a true embodiment of passion, innovation, and the relentless pursuit of excellence. Our story begins with a humble